GTM is just one of those things that's very dynamic. It's not static at all and constantly changes. Not unlike product, right? Product evolves over time. And so go to market, same thing, it evolves over time.
At Elements of Culture, we sit down with experts in leadership and team building to explore the DNA that drives a thriving organization.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Elements of Culture. My name is Julie, and I have the privilege today to be here with Remy Piazza. He is the Chief Revenue Officer for Powerhouse Consulting Team. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, so Remy, I was looking at your extensive list of just experience that you have and you bring. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm based out of New York. I actually grew up in Toronto, but I moved to New York when I was with my very first startup because I was just on the fast path, and New York was the place to be. And but yeah, right now doing a lot of consulting work, a lot of fractional advisory work for earlier and mid stage B2B companies, working with a lot of founders and CEOs, and really helping them with go to market. And in my spare time, I pretty much play personal Uber driver to my son who plays travel hockey. So that's my passion outside of what I'm doing professionally.
That's amazing, hockey. So are you talking about on the ice or are you talking about?
Yeah, there's only
Yeah.
one in the hockey. It's the one they play on the ice. That's that in my world anyways.
Yes, I know. I know my passionate hockey players. I've never been to a hockey game, but looking forward to one for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I know you mentioned right now about going to market, and preparing teams and companies for that. Tell me a little about what that is and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, so go to market is one of those nebulous concepts that people are using a lot. I think for me it's really go to market's really a transformational process that really, that helps companies accelerate their path to market um, with high performing teams that deliver a really connected customer experience. And I think the key there is that it's transformational and it's changing all the time. So you still see a lot of folks who treat go to market as this set it and forget it. So we're going to create this outbound motion and we're going to stick with that for the next whatever year, 2, 3, 5. And the truth is go to market is like anything else. It's constantly changing and evolving based on a lot of different things. So it depends on, if you've got product market fit today, then you're introducing a new product tomorrow. So do you have product market fit? Does the motion that you're in, outbound, inbound part, does that still make sense? Are your buyers even the same? So are they buying the same way that the other buyers are buying? So there's a lot of moving parts there. And so GTM is just one of those things that's very dynamic. It's not static at all and constantly changes. Not unlike product, right? Product evolves over time. And so go to market, same thing, it evolves over time.
So in your experience, let's say in the last 10 to 20 years, how often should a company or organization look at going to market? Is that something they should be consistently doing? Or you talked about set it and forget it, because we see companies do that. And what happens is it almost becomes outdated. They lose touch with what they're selling and who they're selling to. So what does that look like? You advise many companies. Talk to me a little bit about how often should they be doing that? How kind of discussions should they be having around that?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to do is to think about growth stages, right? So if you've got three major growth stages, you've got, we'll call it ideation or problem market fit stage. Then you've got product market fit stage, and then you've got platform market fit stage. And so those are all very different stages of growth. And so you should really think about, I think at a minimum, when you start to, and there's very specific, I think, criteria that we could talk a lot about and probably don't have time to talk about today, but there's specific criteria in terms of what it means to move from one stage to the next. And I would say that if you've moved from your ideation or your problem market fit stage and you're still using the same motion that when you're in maybe different stages of product market fit, I think that's probably a good time to check it. And definitely for platform market fit stage. And, I mean, the major differences between those are product market fit, obviously you've got some repeatability, the market's accepted your product, et cetera, et cetera. And so the motion that the go-to-market motion might make sense for a while, but as you introduce new products and maybe create more of a platform, so you think Oracle, Microsoft, those types of companies, Salesforce, they're selling multiple products, then you could have multiple go-to-market motions in place. Whereas, if you're selling a single product, it might not make sense to have multiple GTMs in place. So yeah, it's a moving target, right? The easiest way is to look at the different growth stage you're in, but I think whenever you're introducing enhancements to your product, that might be a good time to look at it. There's a bunch of different triggers, but I think the easiest is just to pay attention to it by stage.
Yeah. So how do you prepare your team for that? Like, what does that look like in preparing, all the, not only just all the moving parts, but a team for, hey, like, we need to reassess this. What does this look like? How do you lead a team into doing that without kind of shaking it up too much?
Yeah, well, it all boils down to who owns go to market. I think a lot of people tend to think, uh, and historically speaking, CROs have owned that go to market. But when you think about go to market is more than just selling. Go to market is marketing. Go to market is sales. Go to market is customer retention or customer success. And so you've got a lot of moving parts. So the true owner of go to market really needs to be the CEO. And so, in my opinion, the CEO is the one that should oversee it, not necessarily obviously do all the work, but the one that Sherpas the process and really owns go to market. And I think you're starting to see a little bit more of that today, but you still see go to market primarily owned by other members of the executive team, like the CRO or maybe the CMO, right? Chief Marketing Officer. But CEO has really got to own go to market. And then, so they're the ones that are managing the change, getting the team ready, and working with the other executives on the team to make sure that everyone's lined up and aligned, right? That's the biggest part. That's the hardest part, I think, is getting all those functions aligned so they're operating together in unison or in harmony. It's probably a better word for it. You tend to see very unharmonious go to markets in place. And that's because if you think about it like an orchestra, you've got different, there's different instruments in an orchestra. And if they're all playing a different sheet of music, doesn't sound very good. But if they're all playing from one sheet of music and they're in harmony, it's beautiful. And so I think go to market's very similar in terms of, making sure that product and sales and marketing and customer success are all working off the same sheet of music. And I think what they can execute can be beautiful, but without that alignment, you're going to get something that doesn't sound so good, or the results won't be great.
Remy, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you think the CEO should be a part of that because I have, in my personal experience in taking products and services to market, I don't know that the CEO has played a big role in that. And I don't know that I've seen that across the industry per se. And so you say you're seeing a change. What is the benefit? What is the power the CEO holds in the alignment? Like what can happen? Like what do you see? How does when you talk about harmony?
Yeah.
And I know when you go to market, there isn't like the market, like it's everybody's on a different page. What can the CEO contribute? What can they contribute in creating that alignment and that harmony?
Well, the CEO is the leader of the organization, right? So again, if I'm using that orchestra analogy, I'm thinking the CEO is the conductor. And the conductor is the one that is making sure that all the instruments are playing their part in executing that piece of music. Just a CEO is the leader, right? And they are making sure that all the different various function are operating together. And so and they're operating in unison. And so they're delivering, a harmonious experience. And the CEO is really, they're the one that they oversee the entire organization, regardless of functions. When you think about go to market and you think about it in terms of like using that analogy, there's no one else within the organization that really should own it. It's got to come from the person that sort of sits on top of the entire organization, and it doesn't sit in finance or doesn't sit in product, right? So it's I think it's logical. I just think that historically we've been so used to having go to market just means sales. And so, well, let's put it under the CRO. And we can have a whole conversation about that right there, but we don't have time for that today. So, but yeah, I think the CEO's got to own it given they're the leader of the company.
So, as a CRO, tell me this: what are some difficulties that you see in 2025? Like, I feel like there's such a fast pace changing work environment. So, in 2025 and 2026, the next couple of years, what are some challenges the CRO faces in leading their teams? And I mean, just not even internally. I mean, just with what's happening in the world, how fast we're growing in technology. Is there anything what kind of challenges are you seeing just trend wise?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, AI's played a big part, at least in the technology world, and I do think it's going to grow from there. But particularly in technology, you're just seeing a big disruption. And I think a lot of people we're still in the Wild West stages of AI. So no one's really sure how to use it. There's definitely some companies who have operationalized it, especially in the back office, and are starting to see some efficiencies of scale. And so, but I think for the vast majority of CROs and executive leadership teams, there's really still trying to figure out how it all fits in, right? So we've gotten to the point now we all know you've got to have clean data in order to really leverage AI. And it goes back to that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you've just got bad data, then all you're doing is you're accelerating what bad results by putting AI in, right? So I think you've got to have clean data. I mean, that's obviously a start. So we're still figuring these things out. It's moving incredibly quickly, and I think that's what keeps CROs, and quite frankly, CMOs and everyone on the team really up at night is it's moving so fast, and no one is quite sure how to use it. No one's quite sure if there's real ROI yet. And that I know for a lot of CROs, that's there's a lot of trepidation around that for sure.
Yeah. So, what is your prediction for the next 5 years when it comes to going to market and what the challenges CROs face for their teams?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot leaner teams. I think what's great about AI is that if you think about specific tasks like a salesperson just entering information into their CRM after a sales call or while they're on a sales call, AI will now take that responsibility, and it will enter all that data in the CRM. So the salesperson doesn't have to spend as much time on the administration side, which is great. And this to me is where AI changes the game, but it doesn't change what everybody's been trying to do for years, which is only about 35 to 38% of a salesperson's time during a given week is spent selling or in front of a customer. So how do you increase that? And so by automating a lot of those repetitive non-selling tasks, you can really, you can free up a lot more time for the salesperson to get in front of customers and do more selling, build stronger relationships, build more relationships, and really focus on what it is they should be doing. So I think that's what we're starting to see a little bit of, and I see that increasing as well. And hopefully with that, we'll start to see more cohesive go-to-market teams as well, right? So I think AI can do a good job of taking away some of those mundane, repetitive administration tasks and sort of start helping people break down those silos, right? Giving them more access to data, giving, and so I'm hoping that some of that siloism that still exists within a lot of companies is going to help break that down, and that you can see those go-to-market teams, to achieve greater.
Yeah, that's good. I like what you said about salespeople developing more relationships. I think it's been very transactional and people have been trained that way to make it transactional. What does that look like for the future of sales? Like more relationships? Because we would assume with AI, there's just more transaction. But you're talking about leveraging time at this point with AI just taking admin stuff and salespeople building more relationships. How do you coach somebody in building better relationships? What do those skill sets kind of look like?
Yeah, well, these are two different topics, right? So I think AI will free up salespeople's time to build more relationships. I think that's great because knowledge is starting to become somewhat commoditized, right? So you can enter anything into ChatGPT and get something today reasonable, and hopefully that'll improve over time back. But so now you've got the times, and there are tools out there that are AI driven that help with the coaching. I still believe that coaching between two people live is still the most effective coaching. And so as you take away some of those administrative responsibilities, you give people the opportunity, you give, the sales managers, the frontline managers more time to spend with reps in the field doing like things like ride-alongs, right? The real old school stuff. And they're not there to sell, they're there to coach. And so I think it'll free up a lot more time for the sales managers to do coaching, maybe learn coaching, because there's a big deficit within most companies. Everyone just expects a VP or a sales manager who's gotten promoted to those roles knows how to coach. Many of them do not. So hopefully that gives people more time to learn how to coach. And then, of course, execute those coaching skills in the field with salespeople to help them build those relationships. And I do think that is so fundamental moving forward because, AI and a lot of this technology really, people are looking for more authenticity than they ever have. And I think the companies that can help automate a lot of those value added activities so they can spend more time on the value added activities are going to be the ones that really win. They're going to be the ones building more relationships, deeper relationships. And I think that's critical moving forward because, yeah, we all know this, right? Authenticity and human connection has never meant more than it has today because this technology, yeah, has made things a little bit more transactional and impersonal.
Yeah, I love what you said. Authenticity is the buzzword because I think we're craving that. I think that if you actually measure your day out, how much of what you've had is transactional and how much conversations you've had are intentional, I think the volume of that has decreased for us just as a society. And so I think in the coaching aspect of it, when we think about more one-on-ones, like that is what I think every leadership's like, I don't want to do more one-on-ones, but there is value in the one-on-one and what is developed in that. How do you coach your leaders in being better coaches?
Well, there's a lot of different frameworks out there that you can learn, and I won't go into those. I think what's important about coaching fundamentally is that it's not about giving people the answers necessarily. It's about asking the right questions so they come up with those answers themselves, right? And we know that when that happens, the learnings are, they've got more stick to itiveness, if that's a word. It is today.
It is
So
today.
yeah, it's those lessons become a lot more sticky. And so I think, yeah, I think coaching's is really, it's critical for a rep's success. It's critical to an employee's success. I think it's what makes that frontline sales manager role probably one of the most difficult roles in the entire company and hugely undervalued in my opinion, and many times hugely under supported as well. A lot of those frontline managers don't get the kind of support they need. I ran into this personally. It's my very, very first sales director job. I got promoted because I was a good salesperson, because I knew how to sell and I was doing exceptionally well. And they thought the assumption was if I'm a good salesperson, I'll be a good sales manager. And what I didn't realize were those two things are completely different. I mean, they couldn't be more different. It helps that you're a good seller, but you're not stepping in to your sales reps cycles to sell for them. You're stepping in to help them acquire skills and knowledge to sell better themselves. What you're trying to do is create independent, successful reps. And so what I didn't realize when I got promoted was that Yeah, I wouldn't. Selling for them is actually a hindrance. That's actually something you really don't want to do. And so I wasn't ready to give it all away. In other words, to shine the spotlight on someone else and take the time to learn how to coach, take the time to ask them questions, take care about their development. And I was in that role for 9 months. I went back to my boss and said, screw this. I'm out of here. I want to go back and sell, which of course they're like happy. Yeah, for sure. Go back and sell. But no one prepares you for that. And that happened years ago. And I won't say how long, but that happened years ago. I still see the same thing happening today. Now it's better than it was, but not by much. And there are organizations out there that do a really, really good job. But I think for the vast majority of companies, there's that assumption that I'm a good seller, so I'm going to be a good manager, which is they're not. That's not the case.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we assume, or maybe we just assume it's the next step, but I think all the skills are not transferable in leading and coaching others. And so I love that you brought up your personal experience because I feel like that's where we learn our hardest lessons in understanding our own downfalls. We don't know what we don't know, right? Like we don't know until we get into a position we're like, I really don't know how to do this. And so I think that's really good. In your history and with mentoring and coaching, talk to me a little bit about like some of the best advice you've gotten as far as your career, your personal life in regards to your growth and just how successful you've been.
Yeah. So just to build on the last story, sometimes the best promotion's the one you don't take. That's one I learned, and it's is true today. Getting into more of philosophical, know thyself, right? Know what you're good at, know what you enjoy, know what you don't like, know what you don't enjoy, and just spend more time in the latter or the former than the latter. And I know that sounds really simple, but it's tough. It's the saying is, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. I mean, that's a great example of, it's tough to know who you are sometimes, but I would encourage people to do a lot of introspection, understand who they are, where you want to be, what's your vision, what kind of companies do you want to work for, what kind of boss or manager or leader that, who do you want to work for? I think those kind of things are really important. I think from a sales perspective specifically, and I would say in life in general, I have found that the naturally curious people, the naturally inquisitive people, particularly in the age of AI, I think do very, very well as salespeople, but also very, very well, just I think in life in general. And that's what I've lived by is just be curious, right? I think Ted Lasso had a great one. He said, be curious, not judgmental. And I love that. So yeah, so it's be curious. And as a salesperson, if you're really going to add value, it's about learning the customer, right? Learning about them as a person, learning about them and the role, learning about them as a company, where they want to go, what are the issues. Those are all things that you need to learn, and you need to be inquisitive and ask questions. So I think being inquisitive is really, that's a life skill, and I think in sales is a must have.
Yeah, that's actually great. I haven't heard that one, but I agree. I think when I think back about some of the employees I've had that have been super curious. And also, I think taking healthy risk, the risk takers. You said you took a job, then you found out you weren't fit for it. And it's like, I think we have a fear of failing. And so we're willing to say no to things, but we don't know, but you learn something from that. And so I always tell people like fall forward. Like if you're going to fail, just fail and fall forward.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing attribute to have. And I think our sales teams, like because of the way we've coached them and we've grown them up, we don't give them that. I don't think we give them that ability for curiosity.
Yeah.
Or like do it this way, say it this way, make it happen. And so they're not, I don't think, enjoying the ride as they go and the intentionality of that. And so I think we're losing the authenticity
Yeah.
because of that. And so I love that. So Remy, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you just kind of giving us some insight into teams and culture and just your growth. I really enjoyed this conversation and you've brought us some things like nobody else has brought up. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Julie. I appreciate being on. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you guys hiring? Where can people find you? Is there any way
Yeah,
for us to connect
go
with
to
you?
you can find me on LinkedIn, right? So it's linkedin.com Piazza. You can find me there, connect with me there. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, I love networking. I'm always meeting new people. So yeah, feel free to connect with me there for sure.
Yeah, and Powerhouse Consulting Team, is there any services that you provide or the company provides that you think would be beneficial?
Yeah, we do GTM consulting. We do go to market like chief revenue officer fractional work as well. So a lot of things we talked about in the beginning, right? If there's the five valleys of death we call it. Then there's usually about 15 issues that we've identified, and I've partnered with GTM partners on this where we can identify why you're not growing, and we can use a really awesome diagnostic to figure out where those pressure points are, where the team's misaligned, and then we can figure out where to start repairing, right? Where to start fixing the broken go to market. And it's a great process. It's a GTM partners has put out some really good content, really good systems. So that's what we tend to rely on, and it's been really valuable for clients.
Hey, thank you. That sounds amazing, actually, because I think go to market has been a pain point for a lot of companies in helping and just the unification of that and how they go. So that's amazing. Thank you, Remy, so much for being here with us and just sharing with us. We thank you for carving out some time.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be on. Thanks so much.